Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adeduba, and here are stories making the headlines beyond the continent. We begin with the news in North America, where Claudia Sheinbaum has been elected as Mexico's first woman president in a historic landslide win. Mexico's official electoral authority said preliminary results show that the 61-year-old former mayor of Mexico City winning between 58% and 60% of the vote in Sunday's election. That gives her a lead of more than 30% point over her main rival, businesswoman Xochitl Galvez. Sheinbaum will replace her mentor, outgoing President Andres Manuel López Obrador, on 1st of October. Speaking after the preliminary official result, Claudia Sheinbaum said she is grateful to become the first woman president of Mexico.
Agradezco también porque por primera vez en 200 años de la República me convertiré en la primera mujer presidenta de México. Y como lo he dicho en otras ocasiones, no llego sola, llegamos todas. Con nuestras heroínas que nos dieron patria, con nuestras ancestras, nuestras madres, nuestras hijas y nuestras nietas.
Mexico's outgoing president, Andres Manuel López Obrador, has hailed the election of Claudia Sheinbaum as the country's first female president, calling it an exceptional, extraordinary, glorious moment. President Obrador celebrated the historic electoral victory of Claudia Sheinbaum and confirmed that once he hands over power to her, he will retire from office. The election of a woman to the highest office was an emotional moment for some.
Es realmente un hecho histórico. Estamos viviendo un momento excepcional, extraordinario, glorioso. Yo me siento muy contento. Estamos terminando nuestro mandato. Me voy a retirar, pues con
For more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, what's the latest on this historic election result? We have a female president in Mexico.
You're absolutely correct in saying that the first female president to win in a general election in Mexico, the US, or Canada. Now, Ms. Sheinbaum thanked the outgoing president who you just saw speaking there. She described him as a unique person who has transformed our country for the better. Now, she's also on course to having a quite rare supermajority in Parliament, a 2/3 supermajority in both houses of Congress, which means she could pass constitutional reforms without opposition support. That's according to the electoral authority. This particular election was the biggest ever, with 20,000 congressional and local positions up for grabs and 100 million people eligible to vote. Now, Claudia Sheinbaum, before she was elected to president, she was the mayor of Mexico City, and lots of mayors of Mexico City have actually gone on to become president. It's seen as a very viable pathway to the presidency. Now, Claudia Sheinbaum is Jewish. She has Jewish maternal grandparents who emigrated to Mexico from Bulgaria, fleeing the Nazis, and her paternal grandparents, hailed from Lithuania, with her maternal grandparents being Jewish. She's a hailed scientist, an expert on climate change, and both her parents were scientists as well. She studied physics before she got a doctorate in energy engineering, and then changing to career, going into politics, becoming the mayor of Mexico City, and now president of Mexico.
I mean, quite an impressive profile there of the president, the new president in Mexico. But this election has been one that has not been marred by violence, isn't it?
Yes, an election that's historic in two ways. First of all, because like we said, it is the election of the first woman to win an election in the US, Mexico, and Canada, but it's also the most violent election that Mexico has seen. The number of people assassinated now reaches 37. That's one more than the 2021 election, the midterm elections. That's after a candidate running for a local office in Puebla State was murdered at a political rally on Friday. There was also 828 non-lethal attacks on the candidates during election season. That's up from 749 since last week on Monday. So a deadly election, actually, in Mexico, the deadliest in history in a country that has been marred by violence, that is pretty much ruled by drug cartels. Something that the current president, Obrador, has faced criticism for not being hard enough on them. And yes, so essentially a deadly race, 20,000 congressions and 100 million people eligible to vote, but nearly 40 people dead, 40 candidates dead, nearly 40 candidates dead in the run-up to this election.
Now, following this victory of Claudia Sheinbaum, what's next for Mexico?
Well, Ms. Sheinbaum has actually vowed to carry on the politics of the current president, Obrador. That includes a universal pension for the elderly and carrying on youth to undertake apprenticeships. How she will fund those remains to be seen. She says she'll dedicate the public funds to continue the president's social programs, but that is going to be expensive. People are anticipating that perhaps she could raise taxes to pay for that. She said that she will continue a friend relationship with the United States, saying that she will always defend Mexicans in the US. She has commented on the security situation and said that she will work to improve security, although she hasn't given details into how she'll do that exactly. Organized crime groups have expanded and deepened their control on Mexico during the previous president's reign. So that's something that she is going to need to get a grip on. 185,000 people killed during his rule. And although those numbers have started to tick down slightly in the past month, it is a huge problem that Mexico certainly needs to get a grip of. And it's soon going to become her problem and something that she's going to have to solve.
Well, thank you so much for your perspective on the news. Afia Hagen, our international correspondent there, giving us more context on the new president in Mexico, female president in Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. In South America, George Chavez International Airport, the only air terminal in the capital of Peru, has suspended all flights due to a failure in the lighting system on its landing strip, affecting thousands of passengers. The operating company announced that at least 47 departure flights were delayed and 37 arrival planes were rerouted to other nations or airports in other parts of Peru. The incident caused confusion and the suspension in place indefinite while authorities look for a solution. LAB spokesperson indicated that the service would temporarily resume on Monday, as informed by the state corporation that owns all Peruvian airports.
Incómodo porque estamos en estas condiciones, no sabemos qué va a pasar, así que esperar nada más. Ya la situación se está tornando un poco complicada, así que espero.
Y estamos parados hace ratos, no hay explicación, Sky dice que no es responsable y bueno, está mucha gente sin pasaje, estamos mucha gente durmiendo acá acostada, esperando. Yo recién a las...
Los vuelos se vieron suspendidos por un desperfecto eléctrico en una de las pistas de aterrizaje del Aeropuerto Internacional Jorge Chávez. Esa situación, sin embargo, ha causado un grave efecto en los usuarios que vienen perdiendo vuelos, arribando a otros destinos, porque se decidió suspender las operaciones en el aeropuerto. No existe una... A la fecha hay un grupo innumerable de personas que están perdiendo vuelos, que vienen con niños, hay madres gestantes y personas con discapacidad. Todos ellos no tienen información y se encuentran desesperados, desinformados y poco alentados porque no tienen dónde pernoctar.
Let's head to Europe, where the death toll following floods across a large part of southern Germany has increased to 4 as 3 bodies were recovered from the flooded basement. Germany Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited the flooded region, and officials warned that water levels could rise further in some areas. The body of the 43-year-old woman rescuers had been looking for since Sunday morning was found in a basement in the Bavarian town. The Germany news agency made this report. Meanwhile, rescuers on Monday battled to evacuate people from flood zones in southern Germany. Shaw said this was a warning that climate change was getting worse.
Was mir auch wichtig ist, ist, dass wir uns sehr klar darüber sind, dass das jetzt hier nicht nur ein Ereignis ist, wie sie sich seit Jahrhunderten zutragen, sondern dass das schon jetzt vermehrt Fälle gibt, wo wir mit Katastrophen zu kämpfen haben, Hochwasser ganz besonders. Das ist in diesem Jahr das 4. Mal, dass ich in ein konkretes Einsatzgebiet gehe und mir anschaue, was dort ist. Das ist aber auch ein Hinweis darauf, dass was los ist. Wir werden also die Aufgabe, den menschengemachten Klimawandel aufzuhalten, nicht vernachlässigen dürfen. Auch das ist eine Mahnung, die aus diesem Ereignis und dieser Katastrophe mitgenommen wird.
Meanwhile, a group of women knelt outside the Russian Defense Ministry in Moscow on Monday, demanding the return of partners drafted to fight in Ukraine. The protest took place after Russia branded the organization, Poddomoy, a movement to bring back men mobilized in the wake of September 2022 draft of foreign agent last week. They held the protest without inviting the media after journalists were arrested at the previous protest organized by Poddomoy. A ministry spokesman came out to meet the women in a highly unusual move as Russian authorities almost never engage with protesters. He says it could not bring back their relatives because the decision to mobilization was the president's, the commander-in-chief's.
Хотелось бы еще раз повторить мое восхищение девочками, у меня дочь зовет, которые сегодня вышли, потому что я привыкла к тому, что движение «Путь домой», которое признано уже иноагентом, в основном они выкладывают какие-то акции, инициируют, а здесь же собрались жены и матери мобилизованных контрактников, которые вообще к этому движению понятия не имеют. И очень радует, что действительно, несмотря на признание иноагентством «Путь домой», другие девочки, которые к этому отношения не имеют, выходят. И неужели всех жен мобилизованных будут призывать?
The president of Microsoft said on Monday that it would invest $3.2 billion over 2 years in cloud and artificial intelligence infrastructure in Sweden. The company's president of Microsoft and vice chair, Brad Smith, says at a press conference with Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, Microsoft's largest investment in history in Sweden would enable the Scandinavian country to build a world-leading AI data center infrastructure. Microsoft will provide more than 20,000 graphic processing units needed for training AI models and will boost capacity at its data centers in Scandinavia and Stanford.
Sweden's forward-looking energy policy, the plentiful access to green energy, whether it's carbon-free energy or renewable energy. It's because of a partnership with a company like Vattenfall that has been so important to our growth here. And so part of what we're doing here is committing ourselves, to run these data centers with the world's best water conservation and the broadest commitment to the use of green energy.
And I believe this huge investment in Sweden has the potential to pave the way for more investments and increase technological excellence that you might attract even other companies to do the same thing.
I think, if anything, our biggest concern, to be honest, is about the Russian government. And we've been monitoring that closely, and we've seen an increase in Russian activity using deep fakes. But in recent months, it has not been as focused on these elections as what we're seeing right now, for example.
You're watching Beyond the Continent. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Georgia's parliamentary speaker on Monday signed into law a bill on foreign agents that has caused a political crisis in the South Caucasus country and drawn sharp criticism from its Western allies. In 3 decades, Georgia has been among the most pro-Western successor states of the Soviet Union. The debate over the law will determine whether Georgia will stick with its Western orientation or turn more towards Russia. Parliamentary Speaker Shalva signed the bill into law after government lawmakers voted last week to overcome a veto by President Salome Zorobachili who had criticized it, Georgian media reported on Monday.
ამ კანონის მთავარი მიზანი გარე ჩარევების მიმართ საქართველოს პოლიტიკური, ეკონომიკური და სოციალური სისტემების მედეგობის განმტკიცება. ამ კანონი ამოქმედება ხვალიდანვე, თუმცა ის ვალდებულება რეგისტრაციის წარმოიშვება ხვალიდან 60 დღეში. და 60 დღის შემდეგ უკვე დადგება ვალდებულება იმ ორგანიზაციებსა, რომელსაც აქვს მნიშვნელოვანი უცხოური დაფინანსება, რომ დარეგისტრირდნენ ამ პორტალში და შემდეგ დაადეკლარირონ 2023 წლის ფინანსები. გარდა ამისა, 2 თვის განმავლობაში ვნახეთ მუქარა, შანტაჟი, კანონის სტიგმატიზება, ვიხილეთ უცხო ქვეყნის მინისტრები ხალხის მიერ არჩეული ხელისუფლების საწინააღმდეგო აქციაზე. ვნახეთ მაიდნის ხსენება გარედან და მისი ესთეტიკის კოპირება.
In Asia, a Pakistan High Court on Monday has overturned a treason conviction against jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan months after his party was sidelined in a general election. The conviction was one of 3 slapped on Khan in the run-up to February polls cases it claims were orchestrated to prevent him to return to power. The 71-year-old remains jailed on other charges that his Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party are challenging. The decision by a 2-member bench at Islamabad High Court was announced by Chief Justice Amar Farooq.
And the defense has been successful in seeking and successfully begging acquittal and good news for the family. So this relief was much awaited, and finally this is, I would say, the first big case which was a part of the political victimization made against Mr. Khan and Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, which has now been dashed to ground and has resulted in acquittal in an...
It's been a very long road to justice, but finally we have arrived at our destination. This is something that we had hoped for, this is something that we believed that we would get, and we never gave up on the justice system, because when the system works, it works beautifully as it has today, both, and we hope that justice will be done in all the other.
China on Monday denied accusations by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that it was trying to prevent other nations from attending the planned peace summit on the war in Ukraine. This comes after Zelensky on Sunday at a security forum in Singapore accused Beijing of working hard to prevent countries from coming to the peace summit due to be hosted by Switzerland this month. According to him, Ukraine hopes this gathering will help it win broad international backing for its vision of the attempts needed to end Russia's invasion. However, China criticized the conference last week, saying it would be difficult for it to attend if ally Russia did not participate.
中方的立场是公平公正的，不针对任何一方，当然也不针对瑞士举办的这次和平峰会。搞霸权主义和强权政治不是中国的外交风格，所以我想说的是，中方的立场是公开透明的，完全不存在。
South Korea plans to suspend the military agreement signed with North Korea in 2018 aimed at easing tensions, the presidential office on Monday said, after a sore warned of a strong response to balloons launched by Pyongyang carrying trash to the south. North Korea has launched hundreds of balloons carried by wind across the border that drop trash throughout South Korea, which called it a provocation and rejected Pyongyang's claim it was done to inconvenience its neighbor. The National Security Council said it would raise the plan to suspend the entirety of the military agreement for approval by the cabinet at a meeting on Tuesday. And finally, in the Middle East, Kibbutz Nir has announced the death of Israeli-British hostage Nadav Popplewell, who was held in captivity by the Hamas terrorist group in Gaza. 51-year-old Popplewell, who was held in captivity by the Hamas terrorist group in Gaza, was the son of Hannah Perry, who recently returned from captivity, and the brother of Roy Popplewell, who was brutally murdered on October 7th. Kibbutz Nirim community expressed their condolences and shared in the profound sadness of Navda's family, emphasizing the tragic toll that terrorism and violence have taken on their lives. And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.